It's such an honor for me to introduce my good pal, Paul Shapiro.
How are you guys all doing? Thank you so much to John for your very kind words. I am the president of the John Schlim Fan Club. If you don't have his latest book, you better go get it. It's off the hook. He's going to sign it for you. You're going to absolutely love it. What a beautiful day for the DC VegFest. Give it up for Compassion Over Killing, for their leadership. Bringing us all here today. I predict that this will be the only event that you ever attend in your lifetime that has free food, dogs allowed, and all-you-can-drink beer gardens. John is right. I did start Compassion Over Killing while in high school. What he didn't mention is that I also started some other clubs in high school because you see at my high school, any official club of the school got their photo in the yearbook. So of course that led me to start a number of high school clubs, many with similarly noble pursuits such as the Chips and Salsa Club, the Bread Club, and I tried to start a Calvin and Hobbes Club, but I could not find a teacher willing to sponsor it, unfortunately. But of course I'm very glad that Compassion Over Killing is the only of the clubs that I started that is still around today. It's doing fantastic under its current leadership of Erica Meyer. They are doing such great work, and we're so glad and grateful to them for bringing us all here together today. So again, give it up for Compassion Over Killing. I've spent a number of years trying to devote my life to giving farm animals a voice. And one of the formative moments for me in that time was in 2001, when I had an opportunity for the first time in my life to actually visit a factory farm. It was about an hour and 45 minutes away from here. My friends and I were reading about this egg factory. It confined about 800,000 birds, a typical egg production factory as far as they go, but nothing that we were reading could prepare us for what we were actually going to see when we arrived. As we pulled up to this egg factory, we saw long, windowless warehouses stretching further than 2 football fields combined. If it wasn't for the overwhelming stench in the air, you would have no idea that animals, let alone nearly 1 million of them, would call this factory home. We walked up to the door. We were all very nervous, and I reached out my hand to grab the doorknob, and I turned it clockwise. As I pulled this door closer to me, this vast darkness seemed to engulf the local space around us. We couldn't even see 1 yard into the warehouse. We walked in and closed the door behind us. It was now nothing but pitch darkness. We put up our hand in front of our face. We couldn't even see our hand inches away. So I turned on a flashlight, and as far as the beam would allow us to see, there was nothing but manure and flies. We were in the manure pit of this egg factory farm. And as I allowed the enormity of this situation to sink into my mind, I slowly remember turning my head up, and there they were. Tens of thousands of little feet clutching on metal wires, grabbing these wires in a state of near immobilization. These animals each had less space than a single sheet of paper on which to live for more than a year before they were going to be slaughtered. It was difficult to imagine a more miserable existence. We walked upstairs, and over the next few hours, we took video and photographic evidence that we were hoping would shine a light on this world of animal abuse in the egg industry. Time and time again, we saw dead birds rotting in cages with live birds. We saw birds whose necks or wings or legs were trapped in the wires of their cages, dying of dehydration, literally inches away from water. We saw birds living on top of one another in the cages because they were so overcrowded there wasn't even enough room on the floor of the cage for them all to be sitting on the floor at the same time. And there were 2 thoughts that kept crossing my mind while we were there. The first was the recognition that more than 9 out of 10 cartons of eggs that are sold in our country come from these type of hellholes. more than 9 out of 10 egg cartons sold in our country come from these battery cage confinement facilities. And I wondered how many consumers knew that when they bought eggs, this is what they were buying. On the other hand, I also kept thinking and asking myself, what crime did these animals commit? What crime did these animals could they have possibly committed to deserve this type of punishment? We would never treat the most violent criminals in our society like this, murderers and rapists. We don't put them in cages so tight they can't even lift their arms for more than a year before we kill them. If you were to put dogs or cats in these cages, you'd be charged with animal cruelty and thrown in jail yourself. Yet, when the victims are chickens, instead of dogs or cats or murderers or rapists, we can do it, the egg industry can do it with impunity. So, as I've been inside of other factory farms and slaughter plants in the years since then, I always think back on that time and I remember the despair that I felt. It can be so easy to despair at the enormity of the task before us to free these animals from the suffering they too routinely endure. But at the same time, I also felt a great sense of gratitude. I felt a sense of gratitude because I remember that I was feeling that at least these birds were not suffering for me. You see, about 8 years prior to this experience, a friend of mine had shown me a video of what happens to animals on factory farms. I had seen these battery cages, I had seen pigs crammed inside of metal gestation crates barely larger than their own bodies. They're unable even to turn around, pressed up against cold metal bars and concrete. And I thought to myself, while I was watching that video, what would I do if these were my own dogs? If those are my dogs in those cages, what would I do? And of course the answer is, there's nothing that I wouldn't do to prevent that from happening to them.
About nutrient delivery. Unfortunately, we've come to think of food as simply something like some kind of, complex drug that we do for sheer pleasure, irrespective of what's actually in it. And I want you guys, when you leave here this weekend, that before you eat anything in the future, you stop and ask yourself, what nutrients is this plate of whatever I'm about to consume going to deliver to my body? And also, is it going to do something that in fact is going to harm my body? Because I can tell you that there is no serum, there is no cream by Helena Rubinstein or anybody else that you can put on your face that is going to preserve the health of your body and make you look better than the actual food you put in your body. So it's far more important what you put in your body than what you put on it in terms of preserving your health and your looks. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And this is actually a section out of a much larger lecture that's entitled, Are Humans Designed to Eat Meat? Oops, I hit the wrong button. And this is the advice that is from the book of Daniel in the Bible. It says, give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. It's Daniel chapter 1, verse 12. Very good advice. So first, let's look at diets and health. And essentially, I want you guys to understand that bad things happen when you eat the wrong foods. She said, the dog ate my magnetic insoles and now he's stuck to the refrigerator. Well, animal fat and protein have been linked to a whole slew of diseases and disease states, including heart disease, obesity, a variety of cancers, including cancers of the breast, prostate, colon, lung, pancreas, ovary, uterus, and testes. It's been linked to both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. It is, of course, linked to mad cow disease, autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and others. It can cause erectile dysfunction because the same fat and cholesterol that clogs up the arteries that supply your heart can clog up those arteries that supply that special place. It causes gallstones, kidney stones, gout, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and osteoporosis. In addition, it's been linked to gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, peptic ulcer disease, chronic sinusitis, recurrent aspiration pneumonias, osteoarthritis, fibromyalgia, iron deficiency anemia in children, cataracts, and diarrhea caused by any number of gastrointestinal pathogens, and blood diseases such as, or cancers such as leukemias, lymphomas, and also childhood brain tumors. So, in other words, this crap is bad stuff. And if it were anything other than what it is, it would be taken off the market. Animal protein, both meat and dairy, is a potent cancer promoter in non-nursing humans. Studies suggest that the putrefaction of animal protein in our colons can lead to behavioral disorders and exacerbate conditions such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and other mood behavior disorders such as depression. The amino acid composition of animal protein raises blood levels of homocysteine, which has been linked to osteoporosis and Alzheimer's. Plant proteins do not raise homocysteine levels. Homocysteine has also been shown to damage blood vessels and increase your risk for heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, and other issues. So let's look at heart disease. But first it says, Jack and Jill jogged up the hill, their breath came faster and faster. Before the top, they made a stop, narrow, averting a myocardial disaster. And this clerk does something I think a lot more, or this waitress does something a lot more waitresses should ask. She says, do you want that with or without angioplasty? Because I tell you, some of the things that people eat are absolute heart stoppers. Coronary artery disease is, of course, the leading cause of death in both men and women. The vast majority of heart disease that we see in the United States and other Western countries could be prevented by changes in diet and lifestyle. So let me see a show of hands. How many of you know someone who's had a heart attack? Look around. I mean, keep your hands up and just look around. This is absolutely shocking because there are areas in the world where people eat differently and eat a more plant-based diet where heart disease is essentially unknown. And if we did not eat the foods that we eat, and if we ate very differently, instead of the majority of people in this room raising their hands, hardly anyone would have raised their hands in answer to that question. Over 1.2 million Americans have a heart attack each year, and nearly 500,000 of them will die. That is before they even get to the hospital to get their coronary artery stent or their bypass operation. This is just a graph showing the prevalence of heart disease by ethnic group. And you can see in non-Hispanic whites, blacks, and Mexican Americans, it's a very prevalent disease. However, it tends to strike Americans of color at a slightly increased rate. What exactly is a heart attack? Does this mean that our hearts are going to attack us like some sort of hoodlum on a rampage? Well, of course not.